Mbichi is a doctoral researcher at VA University, Brussels, and Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. She's currently working on a research project to address consumer needs that hinder consumption of legumes. Wambui is also the founder and host of Farm to Table podcast KE, and she'll be taking us through the topic career success stories and building a strong portfolio. So can we just welcome our guest speaker in the chat box? Can we welcome her? She's so excited to be here, and we are also equally excited to receive her tonight. So over to you, Mbichi, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Wambui. I know it's a bit difficult to pronounce. Wambui Mbichi from Kenya. And I am really happy to be giving this talk today. I would like to give a few disclaimers before I begin. It's really late in Nairobi right now. We are 2 hours ahead of Nigeria, West African time. So I will try to keep my talk as fast as possible. And also, disclaimer number 2 is that I am traveling, and so there might be a bit of noise and network problems on my end. So please bear with me in case of any noise, but please put in the chat in case you don't hear something or if something is not clear, and I will be happy to answer. And in case I drop, please let me know, and I will follow up with that on that. Okay, so again, it's really an honor for me to be here today and giving this talk. And the theme of my talk is career success and building a strong portfolio. So I would like to start by giving a bit of an introduction. And my introduction is going to be a story, and it's going to be the story of my career and life, I guess. So I always like to tell people that I was a picky eater as a child, and I'm sure my parents, especially my mom, would agree. And so being a picky eater, I hated food, all sorts of food I didn't eat. And yeah, it drove my parents crazy. But then when I was 9, we moved from an urban area that we lived in, and we moved to a bit of a rural area. And then I was confronted with the fact that there were children who didn't have food. And that for me, it changed a lot for me because one, I started to appreciate the fact that I had food. And also it made me realize that we were not living in kind of a perfect utopia world. As you know, as a child, it's life-shattering to learn things like that. And so in my very young mind then, it really planted the seed of what I would like to do with my career, and it was something to do with food. And so as a child, I don't know if any of you know this, but if you're interested in something as a child, you sort of amass as much knowledge about that thing as you can. And so I did that. So I started to read a lot about plants, and I could be able to recite the botanical name of, all kinds of plants, all kinds of animals. And I really just started to hoard knowledge in the agriculture space, but I didn't really know then what I wanted to do. I just knew that that's what caught my attention. And so fast forward to high school, as I think our generation, and I don't want to assume that we are all in the same generation, but as millennials, we agriculture is not an attractive career choice for anybody. And so even in high school, we were quite a big class, but we only had about 10 students in the agriculture class, and I was in the class, and I really felt that I belonged in that class, and it was an important thing for me to do. And then fast forward to university, when I went to the University of Nairobi, again, I found myself doing a bachelor's of science in horticulture, which again, very small group, because agriculture is not, it's not cool, or was not. Maybe we're trying to change that. And then, yeah, as I went on my journey, I kept on falling back to agriculture and food systems and everything. And then at that stage, sorry, I got distracted because someone posted in the chat. I would just like to request the moderator to maybe help me out with that. Yeah, so anyway, at that stage, it also became important for me to now start defining what I wanted to do with my career, not just, it wasn't enough to just know that I wanted to be in the field of agriculture, but I needed to understand exactly how did I fit in. And so the way that I did that was through internships. And I did my first internship in a horticultural production company. And I enjoyed the learning experience, but also it made me realize that that's not where I fit in the production stage of agriculture. And so the next internship that I took, I worked in a government agency that works in regulation when it comes to agricultural produce and horticultural produce regulation. And there I really was in my element, and I was able to learn a lot, and I enjoyed working there. And so as I kept on going, I kept on gathering information about where did I really fit in and where did I enjoy working, because that's also an important, thing that we sometimes ignore in the pursuit of money and, survival. And then shortly after that, I was able to also work in research. And that's where I really came alive, because I am quite a curious person. And in research, you really just get to do the things that you're curious about. It's kind of cool. You just get money to stay curious. So in research, I really came alive, and also in the regulatory and government and legal side, I also quite enjoyed that. And so that has been the trajectory of my career for me. We are, I want to assume that we are all still early career academics in biosciences. And so it's as much finding what you like to do and finding yourself and where you fit in the career, as much as it is, growing and building. So then after my work in research, then I went on to graduate school and did my master's, and then finally I'm doing my PhD. So this story is just meant to give you a bit of an insight into what my career has been, and perhaps also encourage you as an early and young career scientist to give yourself room to discover where you fit in. That is also quite an important part of career success and building your portfolio, because you wouldn't know until you did something about it. And one way that I was able to do it was through internships. Now, let's move on to talk about career success. I would say career success is defined very differently for each one of us, I think. It's important, as the previous speaker said, to define your why. And here for the why, I'm going to replace that with what does success look like to you? What is career success to you? Because for some people, it's money. And let's not lie that money is not good. We all, want money. We need money to survive. But career success sometimes doesn't always look the same for everybody. In an ideal world, it would include money, passion, work-life balance, joy, working in the place that you're passionate about. But often it's hard for you to have all of those things in one place. And so I think you need to define what career success is for you and what are your, in a hierarchical kind of order. Is it money first, then the rest of the stuff? Because then you can be able to, for example, in the biosciences field and in sciences in general, it's a known fact that people that go on to work in industry, they earn more. However, there are some shortfalls when it comes to working in industry. There are some other difficulties. So it would be important for you to know that that's what you're in it for. And I mean, I don't want to shame anyone if your career success is defined as money, but I think that it should be more. It should be something else, something bigger than money. Perhaps impact, wanting to make an impact, because then that can help you to also avoid the pitfalls of, ethical pitfalls that may come around if your only concern is money. So, and in academia as well, it might be that your career success is getting a tenured position at a university. Maybe for those kinds of, for whatever it is that you look up to and see as successful, you need to define that for yourself. So having that definition allows you to stay on your path. And as I said, really take your time to, first of all, find where you fit in before you can now decide what success is. Because I feel like these steps, if you miss a previous step, then it really puts you in a position to, have later on have issues where you find yourself not being in a place where you're passionate and all those kinds of things. So define what career success is for yourself and go from there. So then let's move on to a portfolio and how do you create one as an academic and also just in general in the biosciences field. So a portfolio, if you were to define a portfolio, is really a detailed look into your career. So that should showcase your achievements, your skills, and your potential. And you showcase this not only to get a job. For example, if you're applying for a job, it could also be maybe you're applying for a scholarship or a grant for research funding, or just in general, because for example, now we are fortunate enough to be living in the social media times. And so one can easily say that a LinkedIn profile is your portfolio because you get to showcase your skills and, your achievements and everything. And if anybody is interested in your profile, they can easily see your LinkedIn and contact you. So that's one example of a portfolio. So what are the key components of a portfolio? So one is research output. So for example, if you're published, if you have some publications, that would be a great place to show off those kinds of publications. Conferences that you've attended perhaps and made presentations, and also any collaborative projects that you've participated in. And again, I would really like to break this down for early career people and researchers, because it is quite intimidating to be being told that your portfolio needs to have all of your publications and all of that, when perhaps you're just thinking about joining grad school now. So you definitely don't have any publications. I say any person with the right intentions knows that, for example, if you're an undergraduate student, but you're interested in the biosciences, they're not expecting you to have 5 publications in Nature. So I would say really showcase whatever it is that you're doing, showcase that in your portfolio. Don't feel like what you've done is not enough, because again, you need to remember that this is a career and you grow as you go. So if you're still in the beginning stages, just showcase what you do. For example, in undergraduate, so for example, as an undergraduate, you might have volunteered in some, I would like to give you an example here of something that happens in Kenyan universities. Sometimes we have high school students or primary school students come to the universities to sort of get a feel of what life is like in university. And so perhaps you're an undergraduate student who volunteers to, speak to them, because at any one point you could be higher than somebody. So it's important for you to showcase that. If that's something that you volunteer for, showcase that in your portfolio, and it would put you ahead. So my point here is, don't feel intimidated and compare yourself to perhaps later, and more experienced researchers as an early career researcher. So another thing to showcase in your portfolio is teaching and mentoring. Again, here I would like to give an example. As an early career scientist, I know somebody who set up a program to teach undergraduate students and master students data analysis skills in R. So that's something that you can do and mentor and teach people. If you have a skill that other people don't have, you can take advantage of you being one step ahead of someone else to mentor and teach, and that would really be something to showcase in your portfolio. Leadership and service is something else that you can showcase. Again, with the example of just teaching, volunteering. I don't know if you guys have any student leadership positions in your universities. That is also something else that would stand out. So basically, you need to be as an early career researcher, you need to be quite proactive in seeking those opportunities so that you can be able to have something to showcase on your portfolio. And then finally, something else is grants and funding that you have achieved. So now I would like to move on to what are some strategies to build a strong portfolio. And one is to start early. Start early and define your goals. As I said earlier, decide what success looks like for you in your career as a researcher, and define your goals. E.g., is your goal to showcase your portfolio to get research funds and grants? If yes, then you can be able to tailor your portfolio to show the donors and the funding organizations why you would be the best steward of their grant money. If you're looking for industry positions, again, I think here you need to really showcase your abilities to work in those kinds of environments. If you're looking for tenure positions, whatever it is that your goal is, you need to define it and be able to tailor your portfolio to that. So number 2, I would say a good strategy is to specialize in your field. And this calls once again for be very intentional. Like I gave you the example of my how I handled that was by taking internships. And so this specialization allows you to understand where you really fit in. And this, I would also like to put a caveat here, because sometimes for you to be able to specialize in something, you need to try a bit more. So open-mindedness is also very important. You need to try out different things in order for you to decide where it is you fit in, and also to be able to make the right decision on where you want to specialize. For example, as the previous speaker was asking your whys, I saw that majority of you already know where you want to be. For example, in drug discovery for immunization and all of that stuff. So that's good. You're able to specialize. But also I would like to say it's important to stay open-minded and, keep an eye out for what else might catch your eye, even as you specialize. Number 3 is share your portfolio. I would like to repeat what I said about social media. Social media is such a powerful tool for sharing your portfolio, either on LinkedIn or on Twitter, or all social media platforms are key places to share your portfolio, because you might have the most beautiful portfolio, but if you don't share it, then nobody is going to be able to reach out and to know what your skills are, and to, offer you the opportunities that you probably deserve. And then again, I would say stay updated on current events and trends in your field. So currently we have a lot of talk of AI and how it can be able to basically do everything. I think that very soon AI might replace everything. So it's really important to stay updated on, the trends that are going on. And even as a researcher, how can AI help you to be perhaps more productive, or, shorten the duration of time where you do something. So stay updated with current events and trends in your field in order to be able to update your portfolio and therefore make it as strong as possible. So I think that's all that I have to say about portfolios. I would be happy to answer any questions that would come up later on. I just feel that it wouldn't be right for me to end my session without sharing some tips that have helped me in my career. And number 1 is what we've been talking about from the previous speaker, is mentors. I cannot overstate how important mentors have been for me in my career. Because as the previous speaker said, there's a lot that you don't know, and especially in research. And your mentor, oftentimes you leave a conversation with a mentor feeling like your mind is blown, because they have so much to share, a wealth of information. And I'm really happy that the organizers of this event saw it fit to have a whole session on mentorship, because it's really, really key. So I would say seek out mentorships, and be on the lookout for mentorships, and find a way to find the right mentors for you. And I would like to quote something from a book by, I think her name is Cheryl Lee Sandberg. And she says that a mentor, you don't always have to go and ask somebody to be your mentor. So a mentorship is not the kind of relationship where, for example, you ask somebody to be your girlfriend. It's really more of the value that you get from a person. Somebody can very easily be mentoring you without them knowing that they're mentoring you. Of course, it's important to make sure that you find somebody that has the ability to actually help you out and is a valuable mentor, but there are a lot of people that mentor you without necessarily having the label of a mentor. So for example, some of your lecturers, they mentor you every day when they give you courses. And so take advantage of those very covert kind of mentorships. And also, it's always good to also have those very well-defined mentors, because for those ones, you get more value from them, because even if you're having a tough time with something, that's who you would speak to. That's who would inform you of what opportunities are coming up. So I really cannot overstate the importance of mentorship. So the next one I would say is networking and collaboration. And again, with networking, it's really important to also be intentional about networking. It feels very intimidating also, networking, because when you hear about networking, it's something that it seems really far-fetched, and especially as an early career scientist, you feel like you don't really have much to add, so you feel like you cannot network. But I would say, again, lean on social media as a networking tool. LinkedIn, for example, reach out to people who you admire. And the thing that I say about networking is also, if you never ask, then the answer will always be no. So make sure that you're putting yourself out there and you're speaking to whoever it is that you need to speak to. Networking, again, you can attend conferences. Nowadays, we are very lucky because we have online. You don't have to physically go to a place. But yeah, networking and seek collaborations. I would say something else is find work-life balance. It sounds very ironic, especially as a PhD student. It's a foreign concept, work-life balance. But there's nothing fun about burnout. You burn out very easily if you're not taking care of yourself, taking care of your mental health. So find anchors in your life, because again, with research, and it's a very difficult field. It has quite a lot of challenges. So I would say find balance. Yeah, do your best to find balance, whether that's with your family, with your friends. Do some fun activities, but take care of your mental health and your work-life balance, because if you don't have those, then you can't really be able to focus on building a successful career. And then finally, I would like to say putting yourself out there. And this very much also is in line with what I said about networking, but put yourself out there. I don't know how many women and girls we have in this group. Maybe you can show me by putting an emoji in the comment section, in the chat, sorry. Okay. So this, I don't know whether the guys struggle with this, but for the girls, I know that this is something that's common for us, is we are really unable to put ourselves out there. We sort of shy away from those kinds of places where we need to put ourselves out there. And you're skilled, the answer, that is something that you would be able to do, but you just don't go for it. So I would say put yourself out there, whatever it is, leadership. When the opportunities come, I challenge you to really put yourself out there. And also for the guys, I don't want to discriminate and assume that the men are just good at putting themselves out there. But it's really important to put yourself out there. And I would just like to repeat what I said. If you never ask, the answer will always be no. But if you ask, sometimes the answer might be yes. Okay. And then finally, I would like to close by sharing challenges that I have faced in my career and how I've been able to deal with them. And the first one is imposter syndrome. When you deal with experts all the time, for example, with professors and senior academics, it's very easy to feel like you don't belong and like you don't have anything of value to contribute. But I would like to also share a quote here. The evidence that you belong is that you're there. The fact that you're there is evidence enough that that's where you belong. So I would like you to remember that every time you feel like you're an imposter in those situations, in those meetings. So remind yourself that you do belong there by virtue of the fact that you're there. And yeah, so for imposter syndrome, it's really it's something that a lot of researchers struggle with as well. So it would also be helpful to share with your peers and your colleagues. But just always remember that if you are in a room, it's because you belong there. Remind yourself that every time you feel imposter syndrome. Another challenge would be the lack of, or the little resources that are dedicated to research and sciences, especially in the African continent. If I can speak for the African continent, we do have a challenge with the amount of resources that are dedicated to science and research. And so for that, I would say how I deal with that is by applying to grants still, because maybe our governments do not dedicate as much resources to research, but there are always grants from all over the world. So put that in there, and also just by advocating for more resources to be allocated whenever you have a chance to contribute in those kinds of fields. I try as much as possible to advocate for more resources to be allocated, whatever small in whatever small way that I can. I try to do it. And so yeah, that brings me to the end of my talk. I hope that you've been able to learn a thing or two. And yes, I would like to open up the floor to questions.
Thank you so much, Wambui. That was such an inspiring session. I think listening to your story was really inspiring, and it clearly reflects that career is actually a journey. And thank you for highlighting those strong points on what we could do as early career researchers to build a strong portfolio and equally like journey through this career thing. Thank you so much once again. So I'm sure that would have quite a number of questions. So please, can we just raise our hands if we'd like to unmute our mics and ask Wamboya questions directly, or you could write them in the chat box. She's very open to answering our questions. Okay, so while we wait, okay, we already have one question. And the question says that the part about imposter syndrome, what if you are really struggling while others are doing fine? I guess the person wants to know, the question is from Omnia Sati, and the person wants to know what we could do about imposter syndrome.
So for your question, I would say, what is it that you're really struggling with? Is it that perhaps your experiments are failing? It depends on what it is that you're struggling with. Is it that you're not able to get opportunities, for example, scholarships? What what exactly is it that you're struggling with? Is it you I see you answered and you said grad school. Is it that grad school is really difficult? So how I like to deal with difficult things is break them down, because sometimes you find that maybe the problem is that your experiments are failing, right? You have one very specific problem, is that your experiments are not going well. What you tend to do is to feel like the whole grad school experience is horrible, whereas it's only one thing that's going wrong. Perhaps you have great friends, perhaps, everything else is going well, but you're struggling with your experiment at this moment. So being able to break down exactly what it is that you're struggling with is very helpful, because then if for example we say that it's your experiments that are failing, then that's when you can go to your supervisor and your professor and speak to them about your failing experiment, and they can be able to let you know, or your mentors, or whoever it is that can be able to offer you help. I would say that's one thing to do. Another one is really that I like to do is take a step back. It can be an evening, it can be an afternoon where you just leave and go for a walk and listen to music or do whatever it is that you like to do to unwind, and give yourself a chance to step away from the problem and look at it with new eyes. So those are just some examples, and I would be happy to give you a more specific answer, Omnia, if you can just share what it is that you're struggling with in regards to grad school. And also feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Maybe it's a personal thing that you wouldn't like to share with everyone. So yeah, I'm sure the organizers would be able to share my LinkedIn with you. But all the best.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ruth, for your answer. I am sure that the answer was very helpful to the person who asked the question. So I don't know if there are any other questions that would like to ask.
I see a hand up from Victory.
Okay. Okay, please go ahead, Victory, to ask your question.
Hi, Wambui, and thank you very much for the exciting section. So what I was going to ask, there was the part where you talked about shyness. So would you say you have like any practical tips as you guys like dealing with shyness as a bioscientist? Because I've had the situation where some folks be like they would like go into the part of science where like they don't actually have to like interact with people and just like do their own thing. But I don't exactly know if that part exists, quote unquote. So would you say you have like practical tips you could or advice you could give an extremely shy person who is interested in science, but they have difficulty connecting with people and communicating their science?
I would say social media, because in social media you can very well be an anonymous person. So if you would like to share your work with other scientists, social media is a place to start. Also, I think we shouldn't use shyness to keep us from great opportunities, because at any one point, I don't think there's anyone who won't need to speak in public and speak to others. And so again, there are so many resources nowadays for example, public speaking, building your confidence. Just go online and you will find those kinds of resources, because sometimes I feel like we say that we're shy and it keeps us from so many opportunities. So yeah, I would say, yeah, first start on social media. Perhaps it would may help you feel more comfortable if you are also dealing with people that you had already interacted with before on social media. And then, yeah, also just utilize the internet to find, resources on building your confidence and public speaking and those kinds of things. That would be my response.
Okay, thank you so much. Victory, I hope your question has been answered.
Yeah, thank you.
And I hope that you are on a pathway to being courageous right now. So I don't know if we have any other questions. I don't know if there are any other questions. I can't see any hands raised or any question in the chat box. Okay, so I have a question. So you mentioned starting early as being one important strategy to building a strong portfolio. So I would like to ask for, let's say, undergraduates who maybe have identified a particular research interest, maybe not research interest, but something that really sparks their curiosity. But around them, they can't really see maybe an organization to intern with or where to get better experience and like build up on this interest that they have. What would you suggest that they do in this situation? Maybe undergraduates from low and middle income countries. What would you suggest that they could do?
So as I shared, for me, what I did was looking for internships and volunteers. And if you're in undergraduate, I feel like one resource that is really underutilized is your lecturers. So you can speak to your lecturers to see, especially if it's like a research area that you're interested in, perhaps they have a project in that area that they're working on and that they can allow you to maybe be an intern or just a volunteer or even just speak to master's students, anybody that's above you that's in that field. Just try to stay in contact in those fields in any way that you can. And I understand that sometimes in our continent, unfortunately in the African continent, it's not always that easy to find the opportunities that we're looking for. But I would say reach out to your university professors or even the people that are in grad school in your field. Sometimes they might have some valuable insights for you, and they might allow you to shadow them in the lab for, whatever it is that they're doing. So that those are some tips that I would share.